Hello there, and welcome to the T-Junction. I'm Jats, and in today's episode, we are with Mark Dwyer. Now, you'll remember Mark from the previous video we did, where he talked to us about the extraordinary journey that he has been through to recreate a tribute to the iconic Mercedes Benz AMG Red Pig from 1971. In this episode, Mark talks to us about the amazing 7-year restoration of his wife Nikki's 280SL Pagoda, called Ed.
The 1969 280SL Pagoda is very much my wife's car. It is viewed as a family car, particularly because we won't be selling the car and we won't be passing it on to our kids. We've got a lot of nieces and nephews who are particularly interested in this car.
And friends.
and where it's going to end up. It's one of the family. My wife has owned the car for 24, nearly 25 years. When we thought about getting the car, my wife had received a little bit of inheritance from a favourite aunt, Aunt Edna, who was a very flamboyant lady. Everybody liked her. Party instantly stepped up to another league when she turned up. And she said that she would leave something to each of her nieces. She didn't want them to pay a mortgage, pay down a bill, or lose it in any frivolous way. They were to buy one thing that they were to remember her by. And because her name was Edna, it was natural that the car became known as Ed. And we like to think now that she's treated with equal affection. And she's also a showstopper wherever she goes.
So, Mark, right, we're inside now, and we are sitting in front of an amazing car here, which is the 220 SE. But I really want to talk to you, first of all, if I may, about the Pagoda, because that, I think, is the car that you've had the longest.
Yes, 24, 25 years. It actually... we got the Pagoda by default because we were looking for another car.
Right.
My wife was brought up in the mid-70s in the era of a program called Dallas.
I remember it well.
Okay. And they always had a little red 2-seater Mercedes sports car called the R107 280SL.
Yeah.
And ladies of her generation thought that that was the height of elegance, and they were the cars that they hankered after. And so when Edna, aunt, passed and she left a little bit of money to put towards this one thing that she was going to enjoy, all of this was quite organic.
Mm-hmm.
It grew from that. So I kind of lent on her a little,
right,
because I've always been a petrol head, and
you evil man, you.
I know. And I tried to push her in that direction. Nikki, when I first met her, didn't have a clue about cars, but she knew that she liked something, and if she saw it, she said, "Oh, that's nice. What is it?" And it really kind of brought us together,
Right.
visiting classic car shows and coming up through the ranks of smaller classic cars.
Mm-hmm.
A little Triumph Spitfire. I thought that I had enough knowledge behind me to attempt to restore a Lotus Elan, which I didn't, and was the worst car we've ever bought.
Oh, right.
It was absolutely dreadful.
Was it rotten as a pear, as they say? Or was it worse than that?
Lots of trouble, usually serious, I think, is the adage that people use for Lotus.
Yes.
And we had all of that, and maybe a little bit more. So we drew a line under that, and it kind of bruised us a little about getting another car and me attempting to do any work on it. So, no, put that to bed. Let's move on with his lives, concentrate on work. And in the fruition of time, we came upon what Nikki wanted to do. She always leant towards his Mercedes, and I was a little bit indifferent. They were boxy but good cars. You know, they had a reputation for reliability back then.
Yes.
Um,
That's another story altogether.
it is. We looked at a few dealerships because I was a little bit uncertain after the Lotus episode that I wasn't going to buy something privately. I wanted the backup of a dealer. I wanted somebody who was selling something off the forecourt that they put their name to, that we felt we could kind of trust, kind of rely on.
Yeah. And how many years ago was that, Mark, roughly?
It was the year 2000.
Right.
It was the year 2000. I remember that. I was working in a museum, and we were doing an exhibition on the possibility of what might happen on New Year's Eve of Y2K.
And we're still here,
And
aren't
we're still here.
We're still here.
We
so that's
survived.
good.
There was one that I kept coming across in the Classic Car magazine, Chelsea Classics down in London on Wandsworth Way.
Okay.
It had a reasonable reputation, and so I looked through the magazine, such as it was back then, not having the internet to scan, and went down on a Saturday to look at one of these Dallas-shaped R107 Mercedes 280SLs. They had a red one in there. They had a black one, which was the one she kind of liked.
Yeah.
Because she's got this thing like Henry Ford used to have. You can have any colour you like as long as it's black.
Yeah.
And that was what she always wanted. She wanted a black car. And now we've got three that aren't anything like that.
Such is life, ho hum.
So we went down, and they had a black one there. We turned up, and the Pagoda was on a turntable in the middle of the showroom.
Yeah.
Rotating very slowly around.
Yeah.
Looking like $1 million.
Seduction mode.
Oh, it was fantastic. We were 200 yards away, walking towards the dealership, and it was shining like a new pin.
Right.
It just drew you straight towards it.
Yeah.
Around the periphery, there was about 15 of these Dallas-shaped cars.
But this was the one that stood out.
It was the one that stood out, and there was a reason for that. There's a reason it was rotated on a turntable, because it was twice the cost of all the other cars around the outside that we'd gone to see. So we had a look at these 107 cars, and the interior just was quite Teutonic, quite flat, quite understated. A bit plasticky looking, if I'm honest. And she just didn't like it at all.
Right.
And she edged towards this turntable, and she stood on the turntable and looked through the driver's door, and she saw that dashboard and the chrome and the paint and the leather and how elegantly it's all been organised. And she literally, I've not seen her do that before, but she fell in love with this thing straight away.
So I take it was in very good condition then when you got it.
Let's take the very off that.
Okay.
It was in good condition.
Okay.
And I was around it looking at it, and the salesman was doing his best to minimise my anxiety, let's say, for if I was looking at welts or bubbles in the paintwork, even though I'd been warned by people who know these things that I should have looked a little bit harder into it.
Well, there's that thing, isn't there? You know, if you don't think it's rusty, think again. Because that's what happens with old German classic cars. I've been through it myself, so I know that
it's a good coat of paint hides all evils.
And you're never going to see the underneath, are you? That's the other story as well. So
no, in spite of me getting on my hands and knees and actually looking up inside, which I don't think the people in the dealership were actually quite keen on me doing, as it turned out with good reason. But we said, okay, can we drive it? So it was a little bit of a rigmarole for them to
Right.
move 5, 6 cars around to get it out of there. But we had an hour to settle into the idea of
Yeah.
this car. And while Nick was falling in love with it, I was trying to understand what
you were getting yourself into.
Well, really, what the finances were going to look like, because
Yeah.
we went down there with half the budget
Yeah.
of this thing. We had at the time a little 320i BMW Cabriolet,
Mhm.
which was in excellent condition. It was very good. And I'd anticipated keeping that. But instantly I realised that we were going to have to make up the numbers. So something had to give. We went on a test drive, and I'd never driven a 60s Mercedes before.
Right.
So I didn't have a frame of reference.
Right.
I'd honestly, people watching this, please do your own work. Test drive one car before you go and look at the one that you know you're going to fall in love with, you know you're going to buy. You've got to do that. Take my word for it. So we both kind of decided that it was the one,
Yeah.
and it was going to be a stretch. So we went away from there with a signed chitty to say that we'd come and collect the car once we'd paid the outstanding deposit.
Right.
So we came away with having spent all the money in the world, having to find the same amount again to drive the car away.
Oh, wonderful.
But
that's what us petrol heads do, don't we? The number of times we've done that, and you do it again as well.
We do this. And I have to confess, it was a 100-mile drive up the M1, and I was dry-mouthed coming up the M1. I was fretting, and I did not say a word to the wife about how we were going to fund this, how we're going to do it. And then I stopped and realised we bought a 60s classic Pagoda.
Because the thing is, it was coming on to about 40 years old at that point, wasn't it? So
it was.
Yeah.
It was. She was an old lady back then.
Yeah.
You know,
I think when you look at the car, which is in such good condition, you forget just how old they are. I mean, they're coming on to 60 years old, these two cars now.
They are. They are. We got the car home. There was a barbecue on that evening, and everybody crowded round and celebrated this, that, and the other. And while everyone was sitting in the garden, I crawled underneath it and had a closer look and realised that there were some things that were going to need addressing.
Oh, right.
There was rot that was evident, and there was a little bit of rust here and there that I could see on chassis legs that I knew that I would have to deal with.
Right.
So yes, we got the car back. Actually getting it was a little bit traumatic and a little bit stressful. Then we used the car, and we used it year round. We used it for about 12 years.
Wow.
And it got to the stage where the welts, the paintwork, there was blisters evident around the cowling on the headlights. It was starting to bubble. So we thought, we've got a little bit behind us now.
Yeah.
And so, and it's a member of the family, and it's got to be worth doing.
Yeah.
So we sent her in for a little bit of an estimation, thinking that there was probably a couple of months' work, and there wasn't.
Right.
It turned out that the chap that I took it into him on a Saturday morning, and he called me at work on Tuesday, and he said, "I'm not going to tell you over the phone." He says, "You better come and have a look at this." So I literally dropped the kit I was using and raced across town, and he said, "Let's have a look and see what I've discovered."
Right.
And it was in an appalling condition underneath. And he said, "Honestly, I don't know how you got it here without it falling in half."
Oh, my goodness.
That was how poor it was. And he said, "Well, what do you want to do from here?" He says, you're at the beginning of a long road." I said, "Well, you've kind of stuck a screwdriver in every panel while you've been investigating it. So we're sort of locked in." And so began the beginning of a 7-year restoration.
Wow. Right.
And the reason is I said to him, work on the car until this tranche of money runs out. And it's amazing how quick you get that call from people restoring your car.
You've run out of money.
How fast the money's run out. So there was a lot of stop-start on that. And that's the reason that it went on for 7 years, because we'd save up and then we'd do the work, have the work done. And I honestly thought that each time I'd save something up, that it would get it over the hill.
Right.
But every time they did a little bit more to it, something else was revealed. Parts were getting ever more scarce.
Yeah.
I had an invaluable resource, which still to this day has really helped me out. The Mercedes Benz Club UK have been second to none for their advice and the practical assistance. I've been members of other classic car clubs that they've not had the depth of knowledge. Right. And I think that's what helped me with that particular car. They were also instrumental in pointing me in the right direction to find the right people to do the work.
And I think that's the thing. It's that network of people that the car club gives you.
Yeah.
So you got the car to a point then where it's in, being restored, and it's taken 7 years. But what was that restoration? Was that what we see now as the final product, or was it more to get it back to a standard configuration?
It was actually, I didn't have any great aspiration to make it to the standard that it actually ended up being. I just wanted a usable, roadworthy classic car. But during the time that we've had the car, during our ownership, what is now the comparatively small amount that we bought the car for to what it's worth today, the value of the car necessitated that we would do more work to it.
You'd go for it, basically. So there was no harm in doing it anymore, was there?
So she was a member of the family, so you know, it's okay, whatever she needs, she can have. She's demanding, but on all family members. It didn't hurt anymore.
No.
That's what I'm trying to get to.
Absolutely,
There's a lot of time, a lot of people who are starting out on classic car journey, and they're doing things, and it's a thing. Yeah. And they get so far, and you get a lot of apathy of the time in between when you're doing something, and the next time you've either got the money or the time and the time to do it, and it kind of fall out of favour, and you just want to get rid of it.
And at the end of the day, you're not a mechanic by trade,
No,
are
I'm
you?
not. No. Cabinet maker, carpenter, joiner. We picked up over the years kind of a lot of transferable skills. And working with the interior of the car, with the leather that was worn, obviously with like the dashboard and things like that, it's okay.
Yeah.
And when it's your own car, you're not too concerned about having a bit of a dabble.
Yes.
But
because if it goes wrong, there's an expert.
There's only one guy. Yeah, there's only one guy to blame. That's right.
That's very true.
So between Nikki and myself and my regular mechanic, we've actually picked up quite a few skills that are unique to working on these style of cars, which meant moving on to the 65 coupe, and ultimately the other car, the Red Pig, that I'd kind of got all of my ducks lined up. So it didn't feel as daunting as when we were first starting the Pagoda journey. We've been, I suppose, quite lucky, but it has been organic. It's okay sitting here talking about these things, but there's a lot of intervening years between your start date and
where you end up
and where you went on from. It was actually a blue colour, but it was really flat. Nick had always had in mind that she liked this light blue colour.
Right.
But when we started doing it properly, when we decided that the car is of note and it's now of such a value that we've actually got to do it correctly. We got the data card, found out that it should have been a completely different colour. But she was set in her heart about what was going. But we wanted a period correct colour.
Of course.
So we looked on the charts and we found something called DB906.
Right.
Which was a Grisblau, as the Germans term it.
Okay.
Not a lot of romance in that.
No.
But I think everyone else knows it as Horizon Blue.
Okay.
So that's So our painter did a couple of swatches, about A4 size. And we went over to have a look and offered it up against the bodywork. Did not like it at all. It just did not fit. And he said to us, he said, well, I can cheat a little bit. He says, I'll put a clear coat of lacquer on. He says, and in that clear coat, I'll put a thimbleful for every litre of the finest grade metal flake. It's really subtle, and you will only see when the light hits it on certain curves that it lifts the car. And it's only when I point that out to people
it looks
that they can actually see that.
You can.
So it's quite subtle, and it is not strictly factory. And this one is the same. But it works well enough for us. The 60th anniversary of the rally win was why we put the 60 decal, the numeral 60 on the side of the car. But that 60 also celebrates the W113 introduction of the model. So it was a rally win, it was the introduction of the model, but not only that, 2023 was Nikki's 60th year. So there was a bit of a trifecta going on, and it was nice to actually celebrate all of those things.
Wonderful.
And the Mercedes Club allowed us to lead out all of the Pagoda cars in celebration. I think there are about 13 or 14 behind us onto the track on the celebratory day at Brooklands in 2023. And that was a wonderful thing. And Nikki drove the track. But it wasn't the only track she drove that year. She drove Donington at the motor festival there.
What, the full circuit?
The full circuit on the parade lap, which was her first time out. Really nervous, didn't want to do it at all until about 200 yards in, when she realised that the track was clear in front of her and everybody was going around the same way. So she wasn't facing oncoming.
And there was no speed limit.
Within reason.
Within reason.
And then the next time out, she was chomping at the bit. It was Silverstone.
Right.
We did the Silverstone Historic Festival, and there's a couple of shots of her racing down the track with the biggest smile on her face. And I was a passenger in there, and don't normally do passenger, I have to admit, but I really enjoyed that day as well. Whilst we were in restoration for the Pagoda, we had lots of bits all over the place. We had an engine block at a garage across the other side of Leicester. We had the car in many, many bits over 2 different places. The interior was at another place in Northampton. And we had all of the ancillaries in cardboard boxes in the lounge over these winter's evenings. And we said, is there something we can do on it to keep enthused about having the car, because we can't see it, we can't see any benefit. It's just a collection of bits. It looks like a junkyard.
Well, you can't even see the horizon anymore, can you?
That's
for the wood and the trees,
So Nikki said, can we do something with the bits that we got in the cardboard box and all engine components?
Right.
So we'd sit there some nights, and she'd sit there and she would avidly, with a little bit of wire wool and some Autosol, going over each of the components in the engine bay to actually bring it up to the standard that you now see.
And it's pretty much spot on, I would think. For a car of that period,
it's extraordinary. And it's something that she's rightly proud of, and she should be. Yeah.
Well, Mark, thank you very much indeed for sharing that wonderful story of the Pagoda.
You're welcome.
Well, if you have a passion for cars, just like Mark and Nikki's, and you've got something extra special that you'd like to share, then please contact us. The details are in the description below. If you like this video, please subscribe. Give us some comments on what you think of this video, or what else you'd like to see. If you'd like to see a little bit more about what Mark has, then please let us know too. If you like this video, be sure to hit that thumbs up button, and we'll see you on the next one. Thank you very much to Mark, and thank you very much for watching.